Hello, my name is Cruz, and I'm going to be talking about models of communication. So, first, we're going to define communication and its mediums. Second, we're going to look at three models of communication. And finally, we're going to look at the linear SMCR model, which is just one model of communication. So first, communication is simply one person talking to another. Well, while this definition is true, it's a bit too simple. Communication is actually pretty complex, and it's the act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. So there are four mediums of communication, and the first medium is verbal communication. Now, this can be written language, spoken language, and basically it's the use of words to transfer information to someone else. Now, the second type of communication is nonverbal communication, and in this picture, this person is waving at us. He's nervously smiling, and through his body language, we can infer a ton of different things. Now, the third type of communication is written communication. In this picture, these two people are writing down on a piece of paper terms and agreements of a contract. Later, they're going to take actions based on what they have written down on this piece of paper. So that's why written communication is pretty strong in our society. The fourth and last type of medium of communication is visualizations and symbols. Now, to me, this symbol means peace, but to others, it can mean something totally different. That's why, when you're communicating through symbols, you have to know your audience. So now that we defined communication and looked at some mediums, let's look at the three models of communication. Now, the first model is the linear model, and in this example, we'll have a news broadcaster sending news over the airwaves. Now, this type of communication is a one-way type of communication. It's non-interactive and there's no feedback, and this means that the audience can't give any type of real feedback to the news broadcaster while he's giving the news. So we can look at this model of communication. We have the sender, the news broadcaster, sending a message through a channel, and we have the receiver, which is you, the audience. So now that we looked at the linear model, let's look at the second one, the interactive model. In this example, we'll use a college professor teaching a group of college students, in person of course. So, it's a two-way type of communication. Messages are being exchanged from the audience to the professor now. Those messages can be, maybe they're asking a question, raising their hand, or they could be looking confused, and the teacher can pick up on this. That's why it's an interactive model. The teacher can change his presentation based on his audience's feedback. So in the model of the interactive model, there's again a sender, a message, a channel, and a receiver just like the last one, but now there's feedback. The receiver gives feedback to the sender. Now, we can look at the third model of communication, which is the transactional model. In this example, we'll use two people having a conversation. Well, in this model, it's a simultaneous type of model. Messages are being sent and received simultaneously. It's a conversational type of communication, and there's continuous feedback between the sender and the receiver. And through this model, we can see that the sender is sending a message and also getting feedback from the receiver at the same exact time. So, we looked at three models of communication. Now let's look at the linear SMCR model, just one model of communication. So, in 1960, Barlow created an SMCR model of communication, and there's 5 aspects of it. The first aspect is source. This is the sender of the message. Now, the second aspect, which has 2 sub-aspects, is encoding. The source has to encode a message, which means from his brain, he has to turn his message into words. And that message is the content of the message. If it were a sentence, it would be the beginning of the sentence to the end. That would be the message. Now, another aspect of Barlow's SMCR model is channel, and this is the medium that carries the message. Academics believe that this medium can be our 5 senses: touch, sight, hearing, and etc. Now, the last aspect is the receiver, and this is the person who gets the message. And of course, they have to decode the message. They have to hear the sentence that the source said and then decode it in his brain so he can get the message. So now that we looked at all the aspects of the model, we can see this SMCR model in action. So we have this sender. His name is Jerry. So he's the source of the message. So he encodes his message. He thinks about it. Okay, now he has the word cat in his brain. So that's the message. And through the airwaves, which is the channel or medium, he is able to give a message to a receiver. And now that receiver has to decode the message. And hopefully, he decodes the message cat. And again, this is the linear model. So, in conclusion, we looked at communication. It's the act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. And we looked at 4 different mediums. Then we looked at 3 models of communication: the linear, the interactive, and the transactional model of communication. Then we looked at the linear SMC model in more depth. There's a source, which decodes a message. The message goes through a channel. That channel is decoded by receiver, and hopefully the word cat is decoded by the receiver. Thank you for listening to my presentation.